Hi everyone. So, in my first ever podcast episode, today I have as a guest one of my mentor who has been a really great supporter for me throughout in last 3 to 4 years in my entrepreneurial journey. And he is from Sweden. He is Göran Ardbo. He was as executive in Ericsson, and then he worked as a marketing executive in Nasdaq, and after that he was for more than 20 to 25 years. I think he was a consultant consulting in business development and business growth for most of the companies in Sweden and in Scandinavia. And I'm really happy to have him in my episode. And here's the recording, and enjoy. Hi, Oren. I'm so glad to have you here, and thanks a lot for giving me time to do this first ever podcast of me. And during this podcast, most of the time I'll be talking to Oren about some of the discussion I've been having with him in last, 4 years maybe, because I've been talking to Joran most of the time. And Joran has 40 years of experience, and he has really interesting way to explain, simplify things, and bring it forward. So let's get started. Joran, thanks a lot for joining. And yeah, so we're gonna start with Joran's famous, like one of Joran's, I think the favorite topic. It's mistakes. So Joran always say mistakes are wonderful, and yeah, let's get started with mistakes, Joran.
Okay. I don't know. Think we need to do them today, but yes, it's one of my favorite topics, and you can say among some other really favorites. But the way I'm thinking about business and business development is more, you could say, from a business philosophic perspective, rather than from a pure technical business perspective, because I think the fundamentals has to be there, and mistakes are one of the fundamentals. And why is a man crazy to love mistakes? Most people would like to avoid them, but I think there's absolutely only way to learn anything.
It's from mistakes.
That is the reason. And I like to learn things, because without that you can't develop anything.
True.
And because if you just happen to be successful, you normally don't understand why you are successful. It's really, really hard. Was it because of luck, or was it a coincidence? Because there's really no way to analyze why was I so successful. However, if you do a mistake, it's quite easy to analyze that mistake. Why did we do it? What was wrong? And so on. And out of that, it emerges a lot of knowledge. I do when I should try to do something or solve something. I'm not trying hard to do something really good. I'm just trying to do. But I don't look for the one solution. I maybe try 50 solutions.
Yeah.
And most of them are wrong in one or another way. And also I think when you aspect is that there is too common that people are afraid doing mistakes. For different reasons. It could be, I don't want people to think I'm not good enough, or it is for your self-esteem, whatever, because we have been fostered in a way of thinking that mistakes are not good.
Yeah.
Imagine what that...
is mistakes are wonderful. That's your favorite.
Mistakes are absolutely wonderful. Absolutely. And imagine having that as a statement on your office door when your employees come in the morning. They relax, open up, are really not afraid of expressing stupid ideas, whatever it is. Because they are not one really big success in the world that comes from copying other guys.
True.
You have to think wild. When you think wild, there will be a lot of mistakes. And most of really big inventions in history, and you can listen to Nobel Prize winners. What was the start of this? Well, it was a mistake we did, and it happened to be good.
Yeah. And there's a favorite saying about, I think, the Edison, right? Like he was asked about making the bulbs, and then he said, like I think he tried, I don't know, some thousand times. And then they asked about him. He said, I've tried this many times. Only thing I know is those times wouldn't work because he has made this number of mistakes. So he was landed on the right solution.
Yeah, and it's so important to take off. This doesn't work. This doesn't work.
And lies why.
Exactly, and also I think that maybe a big portion of the things that wasn't working can be used for something else.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an open mind. It happens to me. It's not. Maybe not quite often, but it happens that this didn't work well at all. But it can be used in that situation instead.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of different ideas floating around, and maybe 3 mistakes can be combined to something really good. Because when you don't are afraid of doing mistakes, the mind is really free-flowing and you have fun.
That is true.
When you are not afraid.
Yeah.
It opens up your mind completely. And that is why mistakes are so wonderful.
Yeah. And how do you suggest, like in a team environment, leadership set up the tone? It's okay to make mistakes, and and also of course the mistakes, there has to be responsibilities taken, and there has to be reflection done on the mistakes. It's not like you go wild and make mistakes, but how the leadership set the tone. Hey, here it's all about we allow to you to make mistakes so you can have fun, and how the leadership set the tone for a team.
First of all, start to make your mistake. Let's put it like this. Everyone do mistakes all the time.
True.
The ones who don't do it, they are just liars. So show when you do a mistake, admit that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is a classical mistake leaders do. That they look too perfect. And that really put a lot of pressure on people. But you're 100% correct. It's not about going wild in general. So what we're talking about here is, for example, if you are into a development project, whatever it is, so you have to do it in, so to say, a controlled way. It's not a matter of being unresponsible. I think maybe it is a matter of defining what we really mean by mistakes. Because of course there are a lot of mistakes that is not wonderful. It's not wonderful just to walk directly out in the street and don't look if there are any cars or not. That's stupidity. That's not... So mistakes are, and you maybe should limit it in some area. And also you said leadership, I think you should have a discussion around it, an open discussion. So you get to some kind of common understanding. You can't as a leader point like that and say, now you should do mistakes. Should I do mistakes? Quite
How the hell I
crazy.
did that? Yeah.
So, but of course there has to be some kind of limit. But I think it's more a mindset of being of being open to just try things. So there's about some kind of common definition so people understand, because we may have very different attitudes to mistake, what it is. And if you do some kind of, because most of the time in a workplace you do some quite repetitive actions.
Yeah.
My point is not that you should start to do mistakes when you do standard repetitive actions, because it hardly will come anything out of that. It's more when you are into some kind of development mode. But mostly isn't, don't be afraid. Because I've been quite a lot in the younger days involved in sports on quite high level. And there you discuss quite a lot that the successful guys are not afraid of doing mistake.
Yeah.
Think about a offensive football player. He may shoot
Shoot
20
fine. Yeah.
times. At least 19 will be mistakes.
That's true.
And then he maybe score once.
And
And
that's
then he seemed to be successful.
he seems to be genius then.
Exactly. So the only reason, because if he had been afraid to make 19 mistakes, no chance he should have scored once.
True.
I think that is a little bit of the try. Don't be afraid to try. Because sooner or later, and then you fine tune, you change, and then you find it.
Yeah. I I was going through the notes before we before we do the recording. There's a quote that you mentioned about the mistake that stick to me is that if it wasn't for a mistake, we wouldn't be walking today. We would still be crawling.
Exactly, and probably don't even be alive.
Yeah.
Because you should be so afraid of doing anything. And then there came a tiger and eaten us up or something. So that's what life is all about. But we have a culture that doesn't see mistakes as a good thing. And very creative.
And why do you think so? Why do you think so? There's a culture, like what drives that?
I think maybe it's very much about image.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone would like to be liked, and we don't think that people who do a lot of mistakes will be that much appreciated. And I think also it's so much easier if we talk about the football player. The spectators there, when the match is over, they've forgotten their 19 mistakes. The only thing they remember is a successful one.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a...
In that analogy, I would like to bring in another critical example. Same football player, but if he is the goalkeeper, then there will be a totally different scenario.
That is completely different scenario, because there is the opposite. You do 20 saves, and that's, of course you do, that is his job, but then you miss once.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not good.
Yeah.
But this is really a rare exception. I happen to be a goalkeeper when I played for football.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's yeah. So you might have got a lot of.
And you can ask yourself that, doesn't this rule apply?
I think the rule applies. It's just like how the consequences of different positions differ.
Exactly. And also, when it's also a matter of where are you open to doing your mistakes. As a goalkeeper, there may be a little bit higher pressure to perform. But when you're in a training session, then we were practicing a lot. Can we do it in this way, No, that was awful way of doing things. So that's the only way to develop.
Yeah.
Still, so even as a goalkeeper, it's the only way to develop. And I think there's a lot of other situations that is really critical. It could be life critical. But do all the mistakes in a safe environment. And I think that is maybe one of the key parts. You need to, when you talk about leadership, you have to create an environment where you feel secure.
Mm-hmm.
That people feel that it is okay for me when we're sitting in this meeting room and brainstorming whatever it is to say whatever stupid things. We even go into the lab and try a wild idea that turns out really bad, but you don't get kicked. And that is maybe the most important thing for a leader, a forgiving environment.
Yeah, and also in the same topic of mistakes, I remember you said there's a specific example as well where when you make a mistake, you have to own up for it, right? And then you brought this extreme example of like a guy who was in your school. Whenever he make a mistake, like he can you go on that?
Yeah. And that is also a funny psychological aspect, because in general we don't like mistakes, and we don't even like people doing mistakes. But what we like is someone who admits his mistake. Because we hate people that do a mistake but don't admit it.
True.
But the guys who really admit it without coming with lots of excuses and so on. So this was one of my friends when I was, I don't know, 10, 12, 13 years old. He was a quite wild guy. Very friendly, very nice guy, but it was a little bit of a problem for him to to behave. So he did a lot of mistakes in school, of course. And all the teachers know that. But always if I did a mistake or someone else did, no, it wasn't me. Pointing. But this guy Klaus says, yes, of course, it was me. I'm sorry. Okay. You can't have a discussion with that. And then suddenly we asked him, why do you admit all your mistakes? But see, I get easier away with it than you do when you don't admit it. And then he started to admit mistakes we did that he didn't do. And with now you have really been stupid.
Yeah.
Then he said, you haven't understood anything. Because they think I have done it because I do most of the mistakes. So the easiest way to get out of this is say, yes, it was me. Because I always forgiven.
He has built the trust with mistakes, like the trust.
Exactly. He really built the trust because everyone thought he is the most honest person in the world compared to all of the rest of us. So you can actually build honesty on it.
Yeah.
And therefore we have also discussed when I say plan mistake in your business.
Yeah, that's
Towards
also
the customers, and it sounds absolutely stupid. And you should be a little bit careful how this is interpreted. But my point is that you don't have to do a mistake, but you have to understand there will always be mistakes in business.
Yeah.
Before they are done, at least make sure you have a plan how to fix it. Because your customers will never be really thrilled when you deliver what they expect.
Yeah.
They don't expect you to make a failure. But when you fix this failure and they see that you do everything to fix it, first you admit, yes, we've done a mistake, sorry, I will do my best, I will work 24 hours to fix this. And they really see, they will never ever forget that.
Yeah. And that becomes your that becomes your image as well, like, because only when a mistake happens, the customers get to understand your true nature of like how this guy works with you, how this
Exactly.
team works with you.
Yeah.
Until then, everything is like smooth
Yeah.
and like only when there's like a problem or a mistake, like
Yeah.
the true like nature, and the customers, your team members get to see how this person or the team.
Exactly. And that is also a way of setting a standard. When I say a culture in a company, if the big boss do a mistake in general, they always have a lot of excuses,
Yeah.
blaming others and so on. That is not the way to implement an open, safe environment. Yes, I did a mistake here. We all do mistakes, as you know. So now I have to take on my responsibility and fix it. So I think it's the responsibility aspect that is important. And your customers, they also do mistakes all the time. So they are not surprised that you will do the mistake. But they are unused to have people around them at suppliers that take full responsibility.
Yeah. And I remember you said that, like, people hate the boss who doesn't make mistake.
Because as I said it in a little bit different way in the start here when I said when people that are not doing mistakes, they are liars.
Yeah.
We do exactly the same, roughly the same amount of mistakes, all of us. But some are better to hide it and blame others. And I can say there are few things I say no to in all cases. And that is blame a mistake on someone else.
Yeah.
That's 100% a no-no. Doesn't matter. That was the Klaus thing, my old friend. Even if I did it, he committed the mistake. Because if he said it was Göran, that will never ever be appreciated by anyone.
True. Yeah.
For example, to create this environment as a leader, when a mistake happens, use that, for example, as a workshop topic. What can we learn from this? You can turn it around. Sometimes you need to help a person that is really ashamed of doing these mistakes.
Yeah.
Take it, wonderful, as I do. Wonderful you did a mistake, invisible, and let's see how we can turn this around. Is there any way we can get something positive out of it? What can we learn from it? What was the reason to it? And you can actually use this guy in a positive way.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, okay, is it not when people try to be kind, I say, okay, it's okay for this time because we all do mistakes. Then you haven't learned anything. Then mistakes are useless.
Yeah, that's a stupid mistake.
It's so stupid, actually,
Yeah.
not to use a mistake.
True.
And also, keep in mind, another thing from a leadership perspective is that all your employees need to get some positive feedback. Or to build up their stamina, courage, whatever it is. It's really hard to do that when people do their ordinary job and fulfill everything that is expected. If I do something, and then you stand there, very good, Göran. What is good? I just do my job.
That is true.
It's really hard, and that is a little bit tricky. Then we wait to someone should do some really extraordinary, unexpected thing. Then we say, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you would like to turn around mistakes, to really boast people, then there's no people because it happens all the time. Pick the right ones that you can do something of. Why don't set up a contest in the office? The mistake of the week.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would change the mindset.
And we change the mindset. And then let's discuss it. Why is this a mistake of the week? And people will be creative about it.
I like that idea.
And I think there is another aspect of this also that is, it's a quite, and I have practiced this quite a lot, so I know it works, because it's such, you really get people to listen when you take this approach, because it's so unusual. Normally we criticize mistakes, and here is a stupid guy applauding mistakes. And I said, should we have a competition in mistakes?
Yeah. And yeah, Göran, we can talk about mistakes for hours.
Forever.
Yeah, forever. And
That's why they are wonderful.
It is wonderful. It is wonderful. Since then, I've talked to you, and then, like, that mind shift has, allowed us to do a lot of wonderful things. Like, usually we would try to, stick to one idea and try to make sure like that works. But with that mindset of, the mistake, like we go on a journey and we have, it's okay to make a mistake. We come back and we try another thing. And that has like, impacted in most of the product developments that we, do. And it has been a game changer. I know it's a small thing, but like, as always, all these small things, make a big difference. And I'm
That
gonna,
is really, really, really important. I think what you said right now is as important as the mistakes. The small things, every day, step by step, that is what makes the difference.
yeah, yeah.
Don't wait for the big steps.
That rarely comes. And there's a topic actually we would go into talk about that as well. And I'm gonna go into your another favorite topic is since you are coming from Scandinavia as well. It's time. Like the way people perceive time differs culture to culture, and I tend to see people from Scandinavia, or people say Swedish people are on time. That's Europe. And when it comes to time, one thing I always remember from you is and you said, never say I don't have time. Never,
Exactly.
Rifat, never ever say I don't have time. And yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, why not start there? Because that specific aspect of time, I don't know if that is something typical Scandinavian. Because in some, to some extent, I think in the Northern Europe we tend to be more busy, seem to be more busy and active because we have a culture of hard working, and that some talks about that is what we got from that we are Protestants,
Hmm.
where hard work is really something good.
Acknowledged. Yeah.
By itself, it doesn't matter if you produce anything.
Yeah.
You should work hard. But there is there was one guy who told me, or asked me actually, and that was the CEO of Ericsson in a situation.
Mhm.
How my life was, and so it's a little bit tricky. I have quite a big responsibility and have a family, small kids, blah blah blah. So I wish I had more time.
You said.
I said,
Okay.
this was quite a long time ago,
Hmm.
and he just looked at me, and he just looked. You're completely wrong, Göran.
Hmm.
The interesting thing, it was 100 people around me because this was a gathering, 100 top managers in Ericsson. So it was a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
anyway, he said, do you know, you have maybe 1,000 employees.
Yeah.
Last time I counted, I had 135,000 roughly.
Yeah.
Do you know? But we have one thing in common. 24 hours.
Hmm.
Never ever say anything about your time anymore, because it won't lead to anything.
Mm.
It's all about prioritization and delegation.
Yeah.
And he took an example where people normally complain. Your boss comes and say to you, I would like you to do this, and you're completely busy. There are actually no time. But that is not the attitude you should. It's more an attitude than what you're saying, because instead of saying to the boss, I don't have time to do it, maybe next month or another month, you say, okay, it's fine, but we have to prioritize how I should use my time.
Yeah.
So if I say yes to this, I have to say no to something else.
Mm.
And then you can start a discussion. And people have, because no one will listen to positively to someone who says, I don't have time. because it's so negative. It's really hard to interpret that in a positive way. And because you say, yes, of course, I would love to do it.
Yeah.
But especially if you're in the business case and your boss is the one who asking you, ask him, what do you think I should take away to get it done? And then you have, first of all, a very positive attitude. Nice guy, this Göran. He never says no to anything. And then we have a respectful discussion. And maybe it ends up with, maybe I should ask someone else because I don't want to take anything out of what you're doing because it's so important. So I didn't have to say no. Because no, the word no is never positive. Almost. And then there is another aspect that we are fooling ourselves. Because normally when you say yes to someone, you say no to something else that you already have committed.
Yeah.
If you have committed something to me and then you say yes to your wife or something and I will suffer for that. Is that fair? Okay, maybe you should prioritize your wife, but in general, if you, I'm sure that you don't have that much time to just spare time, so to say. But when you say yes, because people, sometimes we are having a tendency to please others. So if I had said yes to the boss when I don't have really the time, something else should have been probably, indirectly, I should say no to. Is that fair? No? So it's we are lying to ourselves in some way. So you don't never have to bother. I think I told you the story of the guy who said you should always say yes when people come with suggestions.
When people come with suggestions. Okay.
It could be some of your employers that have an idea. Hey, I think we should just work 4 hours in this company.
Yeah.
And normally say, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And then you have started to create some tension. If you say, well, yes, that sounds interesting, but then stop. No friction. It's more like that he will probably realize I won't get a 4-hour workday next week. But he is still positive to it. And that drains away a lot of the energy from it. So this guy, I don't remember him, but he was some kind of fancy guy in international business. Said you can basically say yes to anything. And this was in an interview, but this sounds stupid. For God's sake, people forget 90% of what they're asking for if you say yes. Because it doesn't create any energy. It takes energy out of the question.
Yeah.
Take, for example, from the sports world. If you are in a boxing game or if you are in judo. In boxing, you hit someone on the nose. Will he react back? Yes, he will kick you back. But if you're in judo, you do the complete opposite. You use the counterpart's action and basically you just follow, go away. You don't create any tension. It's a little bit like dancing. And the final question in this discussion about always say yes was, but people will not always forget about when you have said yes. No, maybe it happened sometime, but imagine how much of problem I have avoided during the session. Because always when you say no, it starts, people are disappointed, it would be in their head they would come home, complain for their wife, for their parents, whatever it is. So it like a negative spiral.
Yeah. On the same topic of time, like I think probably this is the best tip I've received from you. Something to do with meeting. So usually, like people are running from one meeting to meeting, right? And you gave me this brilliant tip, Rifat. If the meeting is supposed to be scheduled for 1 hour, try to make it 50 minutes. And then try to have 10 minutes to reflect on the meeting, and also try to have 10 minutes before the meeting, right? I
Exactly.
would like you to talk about that.
I think, first of all, it's quite strange the way we schedule meetings, or schedule our lives. Why are meeting in 99% scheduled a 1 hour meeting, a 2 hour meeting? Why don't we schedule a meeting that is 47 minutes
So true.
or
That
36
is so
minutes?
true.
Because and the problem with the 1 hour meeting is that then you have a new 1 hour meeting back to back.
Yeah.
Our brain doesn't work like that at all. So, and that's the reason why I said either you schedule, as you say, a 50-minute meeting. And in your company you can really talk openly about this and say, this is the way we do it. Because if we go for one meeting and normally we are late to the next meeting, and that is really awful, because then you don't respect the people waiting for you. And it starts in a negative way. But also this about, you need some time to reflect what actually happened. And maybe take some notes from the meeting. Because if you run into the next meeting, and maybe to a next meeting, you don't have a clue what happened in the morning meeting.
And think, right? Imagine in a world where people are running from meeting to meeting, and being the guy who reflects on meeting and go back to the next meeting little prepared. Imagine that, like how powerful you would be in that meeting room.
Exactly, because if you are the guy who takes the notes after the meeting, you can be sure that you are viewed to be 10 times smarter when you take up a follow-up meeting or something. You will probably be the only one that had a real good understanding what was said in that meeting. But then there is another aspect. You mentally have to switch from one meeting to another. It can be, let's say that you have some kind of employee problem meeting. And then the next meeting is some kind of technical development meeting. You didn't even use the same part of your brain. You need to recalibrate, need to prepare. And probably if you have this problematic employee meeting, you have a lot of negative feelings.
Yeah.
It is, but it doesn't have to be negative to the person, but it's maybe the person in case has some problem, you're emotionally involved, you have to recalibrate. The brain can't do that in a minute. You have to have that, okay, what's going on in the next meeting, what is really important, and so on.
Yeah.
And
That's where the time frame, like where if you allow yourself to settle after the meeting, and even if your scheduling habit has like a 10 minute before the meeting, cool down period is helpful.
Exactly. And don't believe that if you schedule a 1 hour meeting that you should stop at 50 minutes. It won't happen, because all of you are so the mindset is that we should be here for an hour.
Yeah.
It's very, very seldom that, okay, we're already done.
That's where I really found your tip really extremely useful, is that you use the term one mindset, right? So when you schedule a meeting for 1 hour, the mindset is, oh, I'm gonna be there for 1 hour, right?
Yes,
But
exactly.
I took it little extreme, by the way. I remember having a conversation about one thing, the duration of the meeting. Second one is why always meeting started like 1 o'clock, 1:30, right? So I took it little extreme where I would schedule a meeting like after talking to you, I would schedule a meeting around like 1, 2, and it's like a 47 minute meeting, and like it's
Yeah.
up until 1:49 or whatever, right? So what I was trying to do is like the people I'm doing the meeting, scheduling the meeting, is like sending a small mindset signal saying, hey, this is a time, like the time is really important for both of
Yeah.
us. So we respect the time, and also that changed the whole mindset of how I perceive meetings. Oh, another 1 hour, but like it's coming from 1:03 to 1:27. It's outstanding in the crowd as well. Like imagine sending a such a weird meeting request for one of your prospect.
Yeah, and I think it's something you're into, that you stand out, and because even ours, well, in many cultures it means that 1 o'clock could mean 1:15, but when you say 1:04, it's like when you go with a train or with an airplane.
Yeah.
Uneven signals something specific is happening, and
I
that is
pulled the trick. I've pulled the trick on clients from Middle East. Like they are little less concerned on the time. So I
yep.
use the same trick with the clients from Middle East. So I would schedule for 1:04, and then like they know they have to be at there at 1:04.
Yeah, I think it's good, but also this, that the time, it doesn't matter sometimes if you schedule a half an hour meeting, 1 hour meeting, 1.5 hour meeting, you will accomplish exactly the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And people say, no, we need a quite long meeting, but also meetings should be planned carefully. I think that most meetings I have attended in life could have been half the time if they was better planned, because meetings are normally badly planned.
Yeah.
Have we a strong agenda? Is it thought through? Is everything prepared? Or should we ask people coming to the meeting, oh, what was it now we should discuss today?
Yeah, and also people don't remember what happened in the last meeting. Like people don't
Exactly.
get prepared. Yeah.
Everything should be prepared, and some people say that is responsible. I don't have time to prepare it.
Mm.
Hey, now we're into some serious discussion. If you don't have time to prepare it, it can't be really important.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have the meeting at all?
Yeah.
And think about this: if you prepare, put 1 hour in preparation, and have 1 hour shorter meeting, then with 5 people, then you actually have saved 4 hours. You put in 1 hour instead
Yeah.
of wasting 1 hour for all of them.
And the favorite, another favorite part of that conversation is you mentioned me this again, is that hey Rifat, don't say you don't have time to prepare. Let's say if you're scheduling a 1 hour call, schedule the call for 50 minutes or 45 minutes, and then take the 10 or 15 minutes to prepare.
Exactly.
In that way, your 45-minute call would be way better than your unprepared 1 hour meeting.
Yeah, and probably shorter. So you
Shorter.
are not wasting time. It's
Yes.
more that you're unused to prepare in life. So you think preparation is not part of your working method.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, people running from one meeting to another, of course they are unprepared. Even if they have prepared before, but they don't even have the time to take a look at their notes.
True.
And how often haven't I been in a meeting where the big boss running into the meeting and he may have prepared and said, hey, you have to wait a minute because I have to check my notes.
Mm.
Wasting all the people's time around.
Yeah. And also, when you are the guy who show up prepared for the meeting, I can 100% assure that, people are always excited to walk into a meeting with you.
Exactly. Because I don't waste any time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm clear. And because it tends to be so lot of just talking to fill the meeting time.
That's
Because
another
we
part,
don't
yeah.
have to be that focused, because we have plenty of time. So we can lean back and just, yeah, instead of...
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the most important aspects of why some big leaders have a chance to accomplish that much they do. They seem to, if I should do it, I need to have 10 times more time. But we still have 24 time. They're so extremely focused, extremely disciplined. So time management is probably one of the most important things. And also you will build respect.
And also, like, it's another thing with the time management is it's just matter of consistent with small effort, like it's not really huge effort as we've been discussing. You just have to change your mindset, like, if you don't have time, you can pull time from your existing schedules and then be prepared and just do it every single day. Imagine like doing that for a year, how powerful that would be in your workspace
It will be a
environment.
habit, and also it will spill over to your employees,
Yeah.
because they will feel, holy shit, he's always so prepared. So they, even if it's not actively realize it, but that's the reason why you are the boss, because
And also,
you're on
yeah,
top of everything. You don't have to act as you are the boss.
true. And people would be ashamed to walk into a meeting unprepared with you, especially as they know you are a prepared guy.
Exactly.
He knows what we discussed last time. He know what to be discussed now.
Exactly. And there's no idea to try to get away with anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you about the one experience I had.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a negotiation with quite lousy supplier I had.
A
And
Brazilian
they didn't
supplier or
deliver.
something?
Sorry?
A Brazilian supplier
No,
or
no, no. This was actually in Sweden.
okay.
And they didn't deliver according to the contract, was my idea. And I had quite a lot of discussions with the supplier's representative. And I understood that she didn't got the permission to really fulfill their deliveries from the top management. So okay, bring in the CEO, I have a discussion with him. And when we met, he started with the normal excuses, and it's because of that, you shouldn't treat the contract like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I said, don't even talk about the contract. I've read it. I know every single paragraph in the contract. And he thought, yes, of course, that is a way of negotiation. I don't believe in that. Then the other person, the project leader, said, hey, don't even start that discussion, because he has. He knows every paragraph, because that's the type of guy he is.
Yeah.
I
The
said,
power of
yes,
showing up prepared.
exactly. So let's skip that.
Mm-hmm.
We are just wasting our time.
Yeah.
Then it's better you go home and read it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
if that helps you so much also in negotiations, customer discussions, that you really are sure. How many times we have to go home and check it.
Mm-hmm.
Go home and check it. Why are we sitting here? Why aren't you prepared?
Yeah.
And it will be more and more important, the bigger customers, the higher up in the hierarchy, because, okay, I can spend 5 minutes on this. Use those 5 minutes in a good way. And I think that is also a way to send a signal when you start to schedule 70 minutes meeting. Not 15 minutes, 17 minutes. Always an uneven number.
Yeah.
People say, wow, that short. No problem. Be prepared. We don't need to discuss. I would like to have answers on these 4 questions. Short and crisp. No discussion. If we need this discussion, then we can schedule a new meeting. There's also another attitude. Instead of, we have to talk about this.
If you can ask the questions without the meeting, just write out, or like send it out in any other form where you can do. Like, don't wait for a meeting to happen. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
And so, because the only basic asset we have is time. You can't get in it. Everything people say, financing is the most important thing, but there always too much money in the world.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we have so lot of crappy companies. Lack of resources is really, really good for development, because it pushes you to do the really best. Lack of time, lack of money.
People having
Yes.
less people. Yeah.
You don't, because we are always wasting time. Because we as individuals, you can't say people are really smart. You have to
Yeah,
work
and that
hard.
that's that specific reason is why startups do amazing things with, these days, especially like 2 people, 3 people startups do come up with these crazy ideas which challenges big companies, is because they're so good with that, less of resources, and like doing amazing thing with that limited resource.
Exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, let's move into another topic that I have noted down. Is it's about consistency, but you always talk about consistency in a line with little bit of expectation management, where you would say, without a proper expectation management, you can't be consistent, right? One of the really good example that I've got from you, and is that helped me actually to consistently go to gym as well, is that, hey Rifat, like, we humans are so bad because we always look for perfection. In context of the gym, when you want to go to the gym, we want with, like, going to the gym is basically me doing the best workout, the scheduled workout, right? take Get rid of that mindset, get rid of doing the perfect workout. Your goal has to be managing that expectation, is that going to the gym, at least few walk or 5 minutes of walk in the treadmill, or whatever the least that you can do. And it's okay some days, yeah, like not every day. Some days, it's the goal here is to go to the gym every single day, not to do the perfect workout, right?
Exactly.
And then how, and that changed the way I look at how to go into the gym, and that brought consistency into me as well, because some days I go back from work and I'm like, oh, I don't have the energy to do leg lift today, or the whole workout, right? And then when the mindset changed, I'm like, oh, my goal here today is to go make sure that I go to the gym. So I just go there, and then lifting a little bit of weight, and then sometimes surprisingly I get the energy, end up doing the whole thing. And yeah, let's talk about that consistency and expectation management.
Yeah, I think, and you're completely right. And I think this relates a little bit to mistakes are wonderful.
Hmm.
And when we talk about perfection, because perfection that is the real enemy of doing anything good. Wanting to be perfect is really a killer. Because, first of all, we don't need to be perfect. And what is to be perfect? And so, as you say, what is the actual goal in this example? It's not to do 252 sit-ups. It's to go to the gym, do something that go in the right direction. And as we have talked quite a lot of, I'm not that fan of specific, well-defined goals. I'm more interested in defining the direction. And it hasn't to be exactly sharp, it can be a little bit like this. Because every time I do something, I would like to be sure I come a little bit closer where I'm heading. It doesn't have to be exactly 1 meter every day, because some days I don't have the energy. But if I can go 1 centimeter, I'm still closer to it. Because we tend to, I'm not able to do 1 meter a day, then I skip it. Then I'm standing still.
It's one or zero. Like we tend to do it, or it's either one
Exactly.
or like not doing it all. Like we don't
And
have the middle ground.
yeah, and the interesting thing is, as you say, and I have been doing this, and the gym is perfect. Oh, I'm so weak today. I don't feel for it. But okay, I get the feeling. Okay, I go down to the gym. I talk to people. I play around a little bit, just so at least I can fool myself that I'm good. After 15 minutes, suddenly I recognize, holy shit, I'm working hard. So many
Yeah.
times it's just a mental barrier to pass, because especially in the gym it's about physics, and the physics of the brain hangs together, but it's very much about attitudes, whatever it is. It could be a hard day on the work, try some meetings, whatever.
Hmm.
And but I'm fooling myself, and I talk this about this as well. Fooling yourself is wonderful.
Yeah.
Create miracles. So I may just do a small portion, but 50% of the time I still will do it a full workout
Yeah.
without having any energy. So and that I think it's important to have this related to what I'm talking about, have a direction,
Hmm.
because if you feel that you have been a failure if you don't do this meter this day, you don't feel good about it. But at least if you have the feeling that you have got a little bit closer, then it's not a failure.
Mm.
It's maybe not a success, but it's not a failure. So
That's a
this is
great point.
also
Yeah.
one thing I think is important. It's important to get away from this black and white thinking. Success or failure.
Yeah. That's such a great point. Either like success, failure, but there's like a huge gap between middle ground where you are progressing,
Exactly.
learning, and
And where are we as peoples most of our time? It's something in the middle.
Hmm.
So if we skip the mediocre work
Mm.
and wait for the successes, you should not have a 4-hour workday. You should have a 1-hour workday, maybe 10-minute workday. After a while, you don't have a work, because it's the bulk of the work that makes the difference, and not the really genius steps. One step at a time, one step at a time. Maybe it takes a week or it takes a half year. But what's the difference if you reach a step-by-step goal more than an end goal?
Yeah.
And that is why direction is so important.
And I have a brilliant example for that. And you mentioned this again, is the Swedish high jumper.
Yeah.
I think his name is Stefan, right?
Yes,
Probably the shortest high jumper to ever win Olympic gold medal, right?
exactly. By
Yeah,
far shortest.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he said this, like, when he started as an athlete, as a high jumper, people were like, there's no way you can like be a champion with this height, right? And then he went back and then he said, okay, what's the average height an Olympic athlete who wins a gold medal jumps? And where's my jump now? And what's the difference? And what if I can improve that, jump? I don't know the period, probably a month or week, by a centimeter, how long it would take?
Yeah.
And then he broke down that whole, like, his goal was not even to win the Olympic now. Now his goal was to make sure that he improved his jump by 1 centimeter every other
Yeah, and
week. Or,
maybe just a millimeter every time. So yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And that is what I'm talking about. He was on a direction.
Mm.
He didn't have the goal to be the Olympic champion.
Hmm.
And that was a consequence of his behavior. It was not the goal in search. His goal was maybe to, as you said, once a year add a centimeter.
Yeah. He holds the record. He holds the record for the highest jump overhead. That means like everyone else.
Yeah, no one has been close to that, I think.
Yeah. That's a crazy
It's
record.
amazing, but it was his attitude, because 99% has, when they heard this, it's impossible. They just skip it.
Yeah.
So I think this illustrates a couple of things, that try all the time, but also avoid the really long-term goals. Because it's so easy that you will get disappointed.
Yeah.
It's more important to ask yourself, am I on the right direction still? Then the question is, well, it will take maybe a little bit longer time.
Yeah. And the point you mentioned is it's really important, where you said, like, avoid the long term, like, goal, or I would rephrase it as, like, avoid being too attached to your long term goal.
Yeah.
Where did, like, I remember you mentioned this as well, is that, if your expectation is high, your failure is high as well. That
Yes.
is, like, people have like long term high expectations. In that case, probably win the Olympic gold medal, or like do the perfect workout. Like when the expectation is high, like your failure is high, it end up letting you not even try sometime, or easily
Exactly.
give up as well.
Exactly. And I think then we are into this about either success or failure. If you don't imagine that you will be the number 3 in the Olympics. There's an extraordinary success. You may not come to the Olympics, but you are the national champion. Or, in the best of times, you can say, well, but I have had fun. Because that's the other aspect. If you are too attached to the long-term goal, you may not have fun at all.
True.
Because actually you are not doing anything good until you reach your goal. How fun is that?
Yeah. That's so
And
true.
without having fun,
You wouldn't get there.
what life is that? And the guys who really have fun, I think, really have a better chance of succeeding. And there you may just get into a situation with high pressure on yourself and from others, whatever it is, and you get psychical problems and whatever.
Yeah.
So that direction is so important. And then you say, okay, I didn't reach what I wanted today. And also, I think we discussed that in general, the only thing you can be sure about maybe not in high jumping, but in business life and life in general, is that if you have a long-term goal, the environment and the world have changed so much that you have anyway to redefine the long-term goal. But if you stay
So true. Even for startup context, like I mean, what I am doing is a startup right now is same. Like we are actually in the middle of that crisis as well, to an extent. Yeah.
But if you are keeping in the same direction, then you can adjust. And I say, you shouldn't have a direction like that, have a direction like that. I'm not sure if I've taken the example, I will go for vacation this summer. Where should we go? You can ask yourself, what do I want to have? Well, I would like to have warm weather. Okay, we can't stay in Sweden. Where can we find warm weather? South of Europe. Okay, then we need to go south. And we say, we go by car. I don't have to decide if I should go to Italy, France or Spain. The weather is almost the same. That can be decided later on. The most important thing is to decide, and that is, in this span going south, I will find nice weather. I can decide when we are in the middle of Europe, one day before we end up, if we should take a little bit left or a little bit right, so we end up in Italy or France.
Yeah.
It's not important to decide that very early on, because maybe when you are on your way down there, something happens unusual happens in France. Okay, then we go to Italy instead. If I
Easy
have been so
response
locked
for,
up and I should go to a specific place in France, what should we do now? And I think this is very, very typical in business. You do that mistake because the only thing you can be 100% sure of, your long-term goal will never work. Because new competition will pop up, new technology pop up, there will be a word crisis that will pop up. There's so many things that will mess up your planning. But if you sometimes even a direction, if the whole world collapses, nothing works. But then it doesn't matter what you do.
yeah, yeah. Especially what you mentioned just before is really helpful for a startup as well. I know it applies for like established business as well. Especially a startup, like we tend to have these big visions, but again, like when you focus only on like where the stage is in the direction, it's much more easy because competition pop up, and like we do get that all the time as well. Hey, this company is doing something like this which kind of competes with you, and we aren't bothered because we know we aren't like competing with that because we are focused on solving that direction of that problem. Yeah, happen to be the solution that they are building as well. You see,
Yeah.
like that's how it's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too many companies are too sensitive to things happening around you that that you have to react to. When you have a clear direction, you can, when something happens in your surrounding, you can always ask yourself, has this really some impact of us keeping our direction? If it doesn't, then don't care about it. Don't be that afraid. So it helps in many aspects, I think.
Yeah. Since I'm coming from startup, there's a famous quote which we always say is that startups rarely die because of competitors. Mostly they die because of suicide, which means like
Uh,
they are impacted by things that's happening inside. Like, they're working on like it's nothing to do with external most of the time,
mhm.
as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and that's true. And in general, if you care too much about competition, you will never be a champion yourself.
Yeah.
Because you will never be a champion because of weak competitors.
And you become obsessed. Oh, they did this, and then we have to all of a sudden, you're obliged to do this as well, and then you have to react to them, and maybe you have a certain product backlog that you need to ship and deliver. All of a sudden, you have to stop everything else because you have to respond to that with your a new feature or whatever. So it's not healthy at all. It's
No.
most likely, yeah, yeah.
And there you have this about consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Consistent development. Consistent development. That's only. Stay one step ahead. It's enough to be one small step ahead. And then you will be the best. If you do that all the time, that's the only thing. Do something that, as I said, go in the right direction. Can be a tiny bit every day, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And some companies are so afraid of that the competition should steal your ideas. But if they are stealing your ideas, they are really 2 steps behind. Because by stealing your ideas, they will now have a chance to pass you.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you are another step ahead. So I think that is also another aspect that constantly develop.
And improve.
So many companies are doing this, especially in business development. technology developments and companies are quite good because that is organized. They have their development departments and they have their development agendas. But it's quite weak in the business development. Then they go to a management conference once a year and say, how should we develop our business? It's not unusual.
Yeah.
They may have thousands of people in technical development and one guy in business development is responsible for organizing those conferences. Should be organized in the same way. Do it every day. Do it every day. I think that is critical part.
Yeah. And
also there is another. Nothing will be so complicated if you do it in small steps. Incremental development.
and it's much more easier to solve problem as well as you focus on these tiny steps.
Exactly.
Because, you kind of have a clear understanding of what to be done and what not to be done.
Yeah.
So your resources are focused and deployed on that.
Yeah.
And it's much more easy to move as well. Yeah.
And then you're back again to the gym session we talked about. You don't have to do the big leaps as long as you're taking small leaps all the time.
Yeah.
Because if one guy is taking a big leap each year and you take a small step every day, you still will be ahead of the other guy.
Yeah. And like the way our brain works is we can't comprehend that progress. The small step overtake that one big guy's achievement. Our brains are not wired to comprehend that.
Yeah.
But when you put that into like a sheet, or when you start progressing it, it's way better improvement, way more improvement than like one big step.
Yeah.
When you compound on tiny ones.
Yeah, and that leads to another thing that you said that now we really need to develop and have a strategy meeting and put up some brilliant strategy. Relating in this, if you put up a too high flying, maybe a wonderful strategy, but if it can't be implemented, it's useless. Because the strategy has to be adapted to the way our brain works, as you say. Because I have seen so many strategies that it's absolutely impossible to implement. Because the leap is too big, or we haven't actually thought that the theoretical idea could be perfect. But how should we go from here to there? It's much nicer to be the other side of the sea. And we should prosper there. And then, okay, we decide for that. But how do we get over the sea? We don't have a boat, we can't swim. No here that can learn us to swim.
Yeah. And also in the topic of consistency is another advantage of that is how lucky you get, right? Like an example I remember discussing from you is that there's, I think it's ski athlete from Sweden who would always win with a small margin in his competitions, and then the TV presenters journalists would ask him, hey, how surprising it is that you get so lucky every single time, and then he would answer that something like, yeah, I don't know, the more I train, the luckier I get, or something similar to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's Ingmar Stenmark. He is the most successful downhill skier in the world in the history.
Oh wow.
And that was if you didn't force him, he hardly said anything. He was just training and competing and took his medals and walked away. And that was exactly what he said. He was so pissed off. It's so real. I don't understand why I get more and more luck the more I train.
That's what happens as well. The consistency bring you more exposure towards what we call luck, right?
And he really improved in such small incremental steps But he did it every day.
Yeah.
And this is also interesting about luck. Someone says, you don't have luck, you deserve luck.
True.
And if you don't practice enough, then you don't have luck because you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And the same thing was when I was a goalkeeper. And you could do some miraculous savings. And there you had really luck. Hey, this is my 10,000th time I'm in this situation.
Yeah.
So my body has it built in. I don't have to think about it because my mind see a pattern around me that is too complex and everything goes too fast, so you can't do anything actively. This is something that has to be prepared for years. Mm-hmm. So when my mind recognizes a pattern, it just reacts in a specific way. And 9 out of 10 times it will be okay.
Yeah. And
You
for you
who
to
are
get
not
lucky,
involved see this as luck. I see it as practice.
it's true. And it's same in almost every context. It can be business, even in personal life successes that comes through. It is to do with you putting the effort. You would always say, like, even for you to win a lottery, you have to buy the lottery. So
Exactly.
you have to
Exactly.
like
Yeah. And this is also very much related to preparations, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that, if you take the comparison, all kinds of sports is just about preparations. Everything is preparations.
That's why I have so much admiration for most of the pro athletes, is that the amount of work, amount of consistency, and the amount of years hard work being consistent for them to be there is absolutely crazy.
And if you compare that to the business world, an athlete may practice every day for 3 months to take part of a competition. Mm-hmm. If you transfer that to the business world, you would like to do a successful deal with a customer. How many months do you practice every day to make that deal? We normally in business skip all the practicing and think we can.
Preparation.
We think we can. Yeah. It's just about the performance.
Yeah. So true.
And that is also that you can relate to the mistakes. If
now
you already have done all
up my mind right now, literally right now, on something that we are working on, sales, like that says like we aren't really doing much effort to be prepared for that, sales effort.
Exactly.
That we want to do.
Never almost happens. And that is related all to the mistakes, because if you have done, so to say, all the mistakes already, then you know what to avoid. You still make a mistake over there, you can never be sure. But at least you maybe have taken out, so you have changed the relatively the potential of being successful from 1 out of 100 to be 1 out of 3.
Yeah. And also it's really dangerous place to be when you know you have made all the mistakes and you know all the answers to it. Like that's a dangerous place to
be. Absolutely, because as I said, you will never narrow it down to 0. Mm-hmm. Because things changes. And also imagine you're meeting a guy that has done the same preparations.
Yeah.
The lucky thing in business is that the chance of meeting someone that has really done his homework is very little, because that is not the nature of doing business. We was talking about this, to be prepared for a meeting. The best prepared will own the meeting.
That's true. The best prepared will own the meeting.
Yeah. The best prepared will own the meeting, because there's no chance within the meeting to cover that.
True.
Yeah. Not a chance.
Yeah. And as we're talking about, you were saying?
No. Go on.
Yeah. So as we are talking about, like we are slowly moving into much more business context as well. So I'm gonna bring another favorite topic of you is attraction, right?
Yep.
Usually people like attraction, people tend to think, yeah, the marketing sales is what even I thought before I had this discussion with you. And then you totally changed my mindset on is that, Rifat, attraction is on every single thing that you do in business, even in personal life. It could be to do with, attracting good people to work with, attracting good investors, attracting good customers, right? Even attracting other people who are willing to support you, right? And in personal context, people could be attracting a good life partner, or like, attracting your business partners and even your friends, right? So this simple attraction, like it can be applied to most of the things in life aspects, and you always love to talk about it. So let's talk a little bit of attraction.
Yeah, and I have used that for maybe. It took me a while to understand what it really was all about. But if have been in business 40 years, at least for the last 15 years, I have used it. And sometimes, for example, if you go into some heavy business, people just shake the head. Attraction, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
We have these features, and selling is about explaining the features and a good price. But you can say, yeah, but what are you actually doing when you explain on the features? You hopefully create attraction for those features.
Yeah.
It's not, there was an old saying, a good product sells itself. Typical engineering driven technology selling.
Yeah.
Hey,
We
we have
call
the
it,
best.
these days we call it product led growth, like the product
Exact,
will,
yeah.
yeah.
And so, but as human beings are not rational when it comes to making decisions. And but in the past we thought so. That was a paradigm that we make rational decisions. But these days I hardly believe any, at least in the psychological science field, will say yes, this completely
Still
wrong.
most people think that we are rational. Still
And
people
that
do.
is the most unrational thinking that exists. We don't. And
That's why there's a book called Predictably Irrational. It's such a
exactly.
popular book.
I
Yeah.
think that is, even if I don't think there needs a book to explain it. It's to make it too complicated, because we are not that complicated in our brain. But so it doesn't matter if you're selling a product, for example. We are probably not attracted by the simple functions. We are attracted to what it can do for us.
Mm.
For example, if I buy a car, is the attraction in that they are extremely high technology level of the brakes? Well, it could be if everyone know that this car has extremely high technology level of the brakes, and your partner or your friends know that as well, because that will bring some image to you that you buy that kind of stuff. But it's not the brakes itself. The traction lies in that it deliver a good image to you. Or in another case, the attraction can be in that it simplifies your life. It will save time for you. When you, as you say, when we're talking about attraction to finding a life partner, for example, we don't start it by interviewing and get all the facts and make a rational decision about the partner. There is something that completely unrational that attracts us. Then you might find out that the features and so on, back that up and substantiates it, so it's not just a thin surface. And the same in business. And you say, when it comes to taking a job, I have to be attracted to some aspects of the company. It's not just about I will get a highly paid or whatever it is. I like to be there. The attraction could be lying in working for the most successful company in the world, because I can say to my friends, hey, look at me, I'm working for the best company in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's a shitty job. But I'm this superficial person that just will show off. In another case is that this company has a fantastic view of loving mistakes that will give me a wonderful opportunity to develop the most wonderful things.
Yeah.
But the most important thing, I think, is to understand that different things attracts different people. But it's always about attraction.
Yeah.
We have to redefine the word attraction a little bit, because it's so normally so related to more superficial. I'm attracted to a wonderful art piece, or a wonderful lady, or a wonderful car that looks nice. But attraction is much more broader and deeper. If you can't attract, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Of course, there may be some stuff that is, you can say that it's sold on specification. But a standard piece, why do I buy it from that company or that company? Maybe I like that company better. Why do you like that company better? Well, they're so friendly. They listen to me. They feel they get me feel that I'm important.
Mm.
So even if you're selling a commodity, there is a reason why I choose one from another. And that has, I'm attracted to the company. I'm attracted to the salesperson. Whatever. Otherwise, it should be impossible to sell commodities.
Yeah.
Why do I go to one petrol station compared to another one? The staff is so friendly. They always laugh in there. They always, hello, how are you today? And the other one is, should I have something?
Mm-hmm.
That's about how I've been treated. So I think attraction, and it can be used in a quite interesting way, I think, especially when you are examining your offering, for example, if it's not selling enough, or if you should develop something, and ask yourself, how can this attract someone?
Mm.
And then you can end up basically in 2-3 situations that I don't know. Then there is a clear signal you better have to develop your thinking.
Yeah.
Or find out, and stop focusing too much of the features. Because there are some companies that, if we add this feature, it will sell. Or we add this feature. Most stuff today has 10 times more features than I even use. Maybe the problem is that you have too many features. It makes the product complicated, and I'm attracted of simplicity.
Simplicity. Yeah.
The more you add, the less attractive it will be.
Yeah.
So if you implement the concept of attraction, it will force you to think differently. And once again, for example, if you are in a workshop and have that as a topic, what do we know about the customer attraction of our offering? And maybe say, we don't know a damn shit. Okay, that is a sign that you have to find out a little bit
Yeah.
better what
That's a good
people
start.
are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is some mistake that companies do. They are not so interested in what people really want. They think
Yeah.
they know much better. And if you have a good idea of what attracts people, then you can use it in some kind of checklist and see, do we really fulfill those aspects of attraction in our market? You can do competitive analysis from an attraction perspective. Holy shit, they have it quite lousy. I can take an example. When I was working for Ericsson in the early mobile phone area in the 90s, Ericsson and Nokia was on top. We was basically this month we were changing was number one and number two.
That was the Samsung and Apple war.
They didn't exist at that time. That was before that. So it was basically a 3 brands, Motorola also, but that was quite crappy shit and didn't sell outside the Americas. So it was Ericsson and Nokia. But there was a huge difference between the products. Ericsson was really hard focusing on technology and features. And Nokia was focusing on appearance. And so Ericsson was really technically driven. And each time when Nokia launched a phone, of course Ericsson bought the first 100. And then we put them apart, checked everything inside, and the technicians put together a report, and basically they were laughing. Old technology, simple stuff, blah blah blah. But they sold. Why did they sell so good? They put a new plastic on the front. So it looked new, it looked nice. It created attraction. Because people wanted to have something that looked good and it was really obvious. It was a new model. Our models was... The wrapping was more a physical shelter for high-end technology. People don't understand high-end technology. A damn shit. It was the appearance that attracted. We didn't understand that technical features didn't create attraction because hardly no one understood this fantastic technology or the functionality.
Yeah. And do you think that's one reason why Ericsson is where it is right now?
So why?
Why, Ericsson is no longer the top competing.
Ericsson is not in the mobile phone business when it comes to the phones at all. Hasn't been for the last 15 years. They sold it. We built the far best phone in the world. By far. In all aspects.
Yeah.
But that was not the selling point. It didn't create attraction. Because people don't buy a mobile phone by features. It's about because most people out there is not technical freaks. So of course I
remember this similar conversation where you would say only nerds would buy things based on the technical features.
Exactly. And but you won't be successful in business. Because if customers, the big market, is attracted by appearance, it doesn't matter what's inside. Then you have to deliver appearance if you would like to be big. If you would like to stay as a nerd supplier, it's not anything wrong with that. But you need to understand that you are a nerd supplier. And you will never have more than 4% of the market share.
Yeah. That's a niche that you're trying to
That's a
sell.
niche. Exactly. So, and if you say to a nerd that it's about attraction, they should say absolutely not. It's because of that. It's not about attraction. And then you're saying, but why is it so important with that. They should basically say, don't use the word. I'm attracted to all those features.
Yeah.
Still, again, it's attraction, but a different kind of attraction.
Yeah. And ever since I had the conversation with you on that traction, been trying to do that even on hiring, and it's really good, right? Like then only, like even we are a startup, we really don't think much about hiring, but you have to attract the best people out there to for you to become a successful business at the end of the day, because people are absolutely what's necessary for you to take it from where it is to the next step or beyond, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been trying to apply in most of the things, and then it's really like good to always like think on that basic fundamental, or how you be attractive out there for investors, for employees, for customers, like everyone almost.
Yeah.
It's a small, like the turn of a switch,
Yeah.
but being that open on that concept is really important, and it's really helpful as well.
Yeah, and I think it can also guide you in another way, and that is if we take the example with Nokia and Ericsson, and you said that Ericsson is not any longer in the mobile phone business. Well, what was understood was that the market is driven by, they are attracted by appearance, but the whole core soul mentality culture within Ericsson was the opposite. It was about technology, features, rationality. And there was still some smart guys that understood we can never, with that culture, be, even if we would like to be number one in the world, we can't change our personality so much, so we focus on just appearance.
Yeah.
We don't have it in our DNAs. So it's better to sell then, because so
Because
many
too
companies try to do something that please the market, but doesn't actually please ourselves.
Yeah. And one company who's in modern era, one company who is a big winner on building that successful attraction is probably Apple. Like
Apple is the best example in the
they're
world.
amazing,
Yeah,
amazing, incredible. Yeah.
yeah. That
It's
was
just
exactly the same
yeah,
thing. I was there around there when they launched the product. Really crappy shit from a technology perspective. But it was so damn easy to use that stuff.
yeah.
So even my mother can use it. Windows, it wasn't Windows at that time, but a Microsoft machine, she couldn't even get it started.
Yeah. That's why when you go start using an Apple product, it's extremely hard for you to go out and use another product because of that user experience.
Yeah,
It's their user experience is just high end.
yeah.
It's really good user experience, and you would feel that attraction when you're using like an Apple product. You want to like I think in early mobile days they kind of did that as well with their pricing little top high with people would like to show they're using an Apple product, and I'm not sure if it's still the case, but yeah, they really did a great job on attraction.
Yeah, and they have understood this about attraction.
Yeah, basic
Because they
human
have
interaction.
never been superior in any functionality, I think.
Yeah, in terms of technology. Yeah.
No. Always behind. Always behind. No one, as you say, in Ericsson, when they started to come out with some crappy products, they was just laughing. Toys. Toys. Maybe for kids.
Hmm. That's how they've been saying in early days,
Yeah,
huh?
exactly.
Wow.
Old technology, crappy technology, low quality, plastic. There's a such thing. We had the casing of an Ericsson phone was metallic. It was plastic in the others.
You're talking about the Nokia back then, yeah?
Yeah, and
Wow.
even the or the Apple phones when they came out. I remember we had some advertisement when you drove with your car over the phone and you took it up and made a call
Showcasing
because it
how
was so
hard it.
durable.
Mm.
And I have actually done it accidentally myself.
None of it matters that much.
But it doesn't attract people. Maybe some construction workers that are messing around.
Yeah.
The rest of the world would like to have something that looks nice. And also, Nokia introduced a quite interesting that you could change the front.
Oh,
So
wow.
you could have actually,
A fancy new phone once
you
in,
could
like,
buy 5 fronts and change it every day if you wanted. For more or less no money. Because it was built in cheap plastic. Of course you couldn't do that with Ericsson because that was just toys.
and their culture always prioritized doing the, the best engineering.
Exactly.
And
The best engineering in the world. And they have always been number one in the network side. Because there it is extremely important with reliability and so on.
Yeah.
There, among the operators, it has high attraction to deliver reliability. Because if the network is down, there will be a lot of customers screaming like hell that the network is down.
Yeah.
So it
It's
depends what it is, but it's still about attraction. If I'm the technical director of an operator, I'm attracted to a supplier that can basically guarantee me 100% reliability
yeah.
because it saves my life. Still, it's about attraction. I'm attracted to reliability, not fancy stuff.
Yeah. And we've been talking for like hour and 40 minutes now, I think. And like last one is just a summarization of everything that we discussed. Is I always surprisingly find that like most of the things that you discuss and like explain, or like the insights that you bring always go back to the fundamentals, and like how this is just a basic small simple thing, just fundamental thing, right? And still, like most people, like just, oh, it's just a basic thing, and then they don't really probably give not much priority into it. Like people tend to, oh, it's another, like, or cliche, like, oh, it's a not, like, it's simple, right? People ignore the simple things, right? But how like how important it is to prioritize, and then like consistently do these simple things which are fundamentals basically, which sometime might be boring thinking, right? Is how important it is that, because most of the thing that you always bringing to the table is these fundamental basics. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I'm more into business philosophy than business technology or functionality. Because if you miss those, it's a foundation. And most business people don't have that foundation. And then you don't get that lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And you can ask, why? Because it's not part of your university studies. No one talks about this. It's theory, 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 theory. Unrational thinking can be explained in 1 page, but some guys need 400 pages to describe it. And I think this is not, we have, I don't know about every culture in the world, but I've been around quite a lot, and in most cultures, the more complex a thing is, it seems to be more advanced, it needs more knowledge, and by that it is more value in it, so to say. A simple solution that do exactly the same thing, when you see that, you say, doesn't demand anything. Whoever can do this. And so we view and measure. We have a culture where we measure, use complexity more or less as a measure of doing good things. And it's hard for me to write a 400-page scientific book about simplicity, because then it's not simplicity anymore.
Yeah.
And if I can simplify everything, why should you go to the university?
Simplicity is the ultimate complexity. That's why even though it's simple, it's not really that easy to,
It doesn't mean that everything can be done extremely simply, but
yeah, it
they're
takes a lot of
always
effort.
the simplest way of doing it. Einstein said something like, everything should be done as simple as possible. Or something like that.
Yeah.
And I've told you, when I was in the computer business and I was with the Nasdaq Stock Exchange technology company, we built probably one of the most complicated IT systems in the world for stock exchange.
Yeah.
Extremely complicated. And
Back then
basically,
it must have been really extremely complex. Best engineering out
and
there.
basically no downtime. Time has to work all the time.
Yeah.
Every day, every year, because the cost of having a New York Stock Exchange, we are closed today because of computer problem. Most companies get away with that because you hear it all the time. It's not accepted.
Yeah.
But sometimes I was so damn tired because I am with the marketing director there, and I said to the guys that was bragging so much about the technology guys, about how smart solutions that made it possible. And sometimes it was too much, and I got a little bit frustrated. I said, I can guarantee you, if a empty show box can solve their problem, they should always choose the empty show box. They don't buy your system because it's so damn complicated. They hate to buy your complicated systems, but they don't have an alternative.
Yeah.
They don't buy it because it's complicated and sophisticated.
Yeah.
They buy it for two reasons. No, reliability, three things. Reliability, performance, and accuracy. They don't care how you solve it. They're so frustrated having to buy those complicated stuff. But it can't be more simplified, that's a problem. But we can explain it in a more simplified, so we don't, because if you say it's extremely complicated, you scare the potential customers.
Yeah. Going back to another thing that we discussed is like simplicity is it's always attractive and it attracts. Complexity kind of
Exactly. And I think we need a full podcast just about simplicity. Because simplicity is the ultimate, most important thing.
Yeah.
I think.
And I think most of the topics that we discussed, we could have like discussed these topics in
Yeah.
like every single like a podcast episode.
Yeah.
But
there's so
yeah,
many,
you're
there's so many dimensions on simplicity and how it can be applied in different ways.
Yeah.
And as we live in a culture that promotes complexity,
Yeah.
it's a matter of mindset that has to be understood.
Yeah, and maybe in near future where we'll do like another session if the podcast if we want to do a session I would love to do as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, we discuss a lot of topics. I'm really grateful to have you as a very first guest in my podcast.
Yeah.
And also thanks a lot for giving me your time. Not just only this podcast, you've been a really great supporter throughout my career, especially since I started doing
Hope so.
business. Because your insights are so much valuable, and your guidance as well. And I'm really glad to have you on the podcast, and I'm really happy that I had the chance to have this conversation with you. Thanks a lot, Göran, for
You're welcome. It's just a pleasure, especially together with you.
It's awesome. Let's try to do one more in future as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's up to you. I'm always here.
Yeah. Awesome.
Take care. We keep in touch.